Pull up a chair and buckle up. It's the Original Strength BodCast. Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in to this week's edition of the Original Strength BodCast. I've got my good friend Josh Hillis back to talk to us this week about emotional eating and all other exciting fun stuff like rabbits and Easter eggs. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tim, man. It's good to be back. Good to be back.
So Josh, we talked about eating skills last time you were here, but this week, you said we had some good things we could dialogue about for emotional eating.
Yeah. Emotional eating is like really my research interest right now. And it made me think about it because you were just talking about that thing that I posted where it was like, it's okay to change your opinion based on new facts. And this is one of those things where I've shifted everything in the last 5 years, especially.
Before you get started, I just want to verify you did say it is okay to change your opinion based on the latest facts or evidence. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure I got that.
Yeah. Which like in reality, isn't necessarily easy. Like a lot of people have brought up the fact that the things that I'm saying now are drastically different from my first book. And that's like kind of weird, right? They're like, hey, like you built this business on this thing and I was into it. And now you're saying this other thing, like that's,
So the first book was Fat Loss Happens on Tuesday. Right? Monday.
Yeah.
But that was going to be my joke. I totally messed up my joke. So I was going to ask you, well, is it okay if it happens on Tuesday or Wednesday? But never mind. I just totally ruined the joke.
I was like, there's a joke there, but I'm missing it.
There was. I went to the punchline instead of... Darn.
Yeah, cool. But yeah, so like the first book was very much, it was, for the people that haven't seen it, and probably most, aren't, if you aren't familiar with me, it was really early on, like habit change with nutrition, but it really still put like food logging first. And at the time I was really known for pushing food logging and for counting calories and all that kind of stuff. And what I was trying to get at the time was that I'd been using food logging to coach behavior. Like I'd been looking at the food log and going like, oh, these are the habits that would make a difference. And like one of the biggest shifts after that is I realized like you can actually like the food content is almost like a distraction from working on the behaviors for a lot of people. So that was a big shift. We don't count calories anymore. We have other ways of managing. It's not that we don't manage food intake, and it's not that we don't track anything, but we track behaviors. Like, am I putting the fork down between bites? Am I checking with my stomach? Am I full? Am I, putting 4 to 6 hours between meals without snacking? And so there's still things getting tracked, but like drastic departure from essentially like a calorie counting based system. Like that's a big change. And like going to the emotional eating thing, and over for the people that emotional eating is an issue, an over focus on counting calories and food content absolutely makes it worse.
Oh.
And that's just a factor of moralizing food, right? And this is not one of those things where like I always want to be really clear that like all of that stuff works for somewhere between 15 and 30% of people, right? So if you're listening, you're like, oh, I count calories and it's fine with me, and that's cool. That's cool. You're absolutely in that subset of the population, and then there's this other like bigger group that that leads them towards moralizing food, which is what most diets kind of do. And that like really strongly correlates with over restriction and then overeating, emotional eating, food reactivity, which is like you see something, you're like, I just have to have it. Like it makes all those things worse.
So basically though, your big shift though is because you're trying to help people struggle less.
Yeah.
And get there faster or easier or better for their own emotional well-being.
Yeah. So it's cool that you said that because I'm out of the game of trying to get people there faster.
Ah, okay.
I'm trying to get more people there.
Right on.
And it's different. And it's different because like for that 15% of people that like diets really work for, we could be much more aggressive and get them there faster. Like we totally could, and they can't, and that's cool. But the things that work for that group are going to destroy the other group. And so if I can get these other people that have been completely underserved, completely, if I can get them there in twice the time that the other group would get there, that's fine, because their other option was never. Their other option was diet, over restrict, overeat, fail, start again next year, every single year, like hamster wheel going nowhere, right?
So it's kind of like, but it's very similar to, like, say, the exercise world, where you've got all these fitness centers that are open, but they're only serving the people that actually, like, the fit people go to the fitness centers.
Yeah.
Like the exercisers are the ones that go to the exercise centers, but everybody else that could benefit from a healthy lifestyle of movement and stuff are the ones you really want to get in there, but those are the ones that don't go in there.
Yes. That is a perfect example. And like for people listening that like haven't worked in a gym and like don't realize that like it is really a minority of the population, and we're kind of like passing around these like fit people from like thing to thing, and the number of new people that get into that is really small, and that sucks. And like I have thoughts about that too, but that's a different thing.
That's on the next show.
Totally. So that was one of the big shifts. Was it's like, okay, these things that work for like this group of people, and all the trainers are in that group of people, right? And all the people that have done well with diets that you've talked to, like you talk to your friend and like he or she did really well with this diet, right? That's cool. Like they're in this group. So we've got this like all these people that did do well. Um, but like everyone else just isn't. So so that first shift was like how do we not have this like over focus on food and moralization of food and magic food and like magical macronutrients and all these like pretty arbitrary rules that might have like some kernel of truth but are like way overblown. How can we put all that aside? And then the next big shift was I found a study on acceptance. Actually, my friend Georgie Fear found a study on acceptance and commitment therapy versus cognitive behavioral therapy for behavioral weight loss. And that's a mouthful, but basically for the people listening at home, what it basically amounted to was, here's an acceptance-based program. Here's a program where you're going to accept that you're an imperfect human, and you're going to accept that you have cravings sometimes, and you're going to accept that you have emotions, and we're going to find some tools to like be with those and still take actions that matter to us, like still take actions in line with like being intentional about our eating. And so that was one intervention. That was the acceptance-based intervention. And then the other intervention was entirely based on like changing your thoughts, that if you change your thoughts, you can change your emotions. And what we find is kind of like a similar sort of thing to the calorie counting thing, where there's a percentage of people that like changing your thoughts to change your emotions to do better with food cravings and emotional eating works better for us, for a 1% of people. There's a much bigger percentage of people, the people that have the hardest time with emotional eating do better with a program based on accepting that it's okay to have a full range of human emotions. And so like if anyone watching, if anyone listening has seen the movie Inside Out, the Pixar movie, that kind of like is the whole deal. Like that whole thing where like it's okay to have joy, and it's okay to have sadness, and it's okay to have, and then once you can be with sadness, or you can be with frustration, or you can be with stress, then you don't have to fix it with food, right? You don't have to go like, oh wow, everyone looks happy on social media. Like if I'm sad today, that's wrong and I need to eat something to fix it. You can actually go like, oh wow, I'm sad today, and I've got these tools where I can be with being sad, but I can still do the things that matter to me. I can be intentional about my eating. I can connect with my family in meaningful ways. I can do what matters at work. Like I can do all those things while I'm being sad. I don't have to like fix that first. And so again, like for the people that struggle the most with emotional eating, that is a more effective strategy. And that was a like mind exploded huge shift for me. Like that, it was very different from what I was doing before.
So I guess what I'm hearing you say is that to take the acceptance approach, though, the person has to be mindful.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Like they have to be really plugged into themselves, like to be aware that they're feeling a certain way. And then they have to take and use this word on the last episode that we did. They're going to have to take a self-compassionate approach to whatever they're experiencing. And then somehow give themselves enough space to make an appropriate action that will put them in the direction that they want to be. Is that,
dude, nailed it? You said it way clearer than I did.
Well, no, I mean, I'm the translator.
Yeah. So what would you like you're talking about, like the mindfulness, it requires a certain amount of noticing your own thinking, right? And noticing your own emotions. And one of the things that's really funny is that I don't know if we talked about like noticing and labeling emotions, but the funny thing is they've done some really cool interventions where they looked at people's coping strategies and whether or not they could differentiate what their emotions were. And if someone could notice and like label their emotions, any coping strategy that they use will be more effective. On the flip side, if they can't differentiate their emotions, then whatever coping strategy they used was less effective.
Interesting.
And so just by virtue of the fact that you actually like took a minute and, oh, that's the other thing. You want to get really nerdy about it? You don't have to get the emotion right.
You just got to label it.
Yeah. You just need to stop and check in with yourself and go like, oh, that's probably sadness, or that's probably frustrated. Like different, like sometimes, and I bring this up because I've done this a lot with clients, and clients sometimes go like, oh, I couldn't tell if it was frustration or stress, like, and that doesn't, like, broad strokes, like what you said before about the mindfulness and the checking in, that's the part that makes the biggest difference. And so when people check in, they go like, oh, like I'm me here and I can see this feeling that I'm having. And I think it's probably something like this. That makes everything else possible. It actually gives us a little bit of distance. It's not running us anymore. It's still there. It's still uncomfortable, but it gives us some wiggle room to take actions that might be different from how we responded to that feeling in the past.
So you know what's interesting is, like, I don't know if you've ever read Crucial Conversations.
No, I've heard such good things.
Okay, but the premise. Okay, you're having crucial crucial eating skills or crucial dietary lifestyle choices, because so in Crucial Conversations is if you and I are about to have a conversation that could be crucial.
Contentious.
Yes, sure. If I know my goal of the conversation and I like say I want the greatest good to come out of the conversation.
Yeah.
If you and I had that conversation and I start to get angry, I have to be able to be aware of that anger and then to sit with it and say, and then check, what is my goal? my goal is for the greatest good. So if I don't need to win, or we don't need to fight, we just need to come to a win-win so that we can move forward in the right direction. And I'm butchering crucial conversations, but this is kind of like what it sounds like what you're talking about with
Exactly.
the recognizing your emotions for the eating.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because I took a communications class at one point that was very much like what you just said. Um, and um, and so yeah. So what you're saying is totally dead on, because that's exactly the same thing. And so like you said, noticing your emotions, and also like knowing like your intention for the conversation. Was that how you
Yeah.
put it? It's the same thing with eating skills. You've got noticing what's going on, and you've got typically it's called like values, right? Which I'm starting to move away from calling it values, because there's so many different ways you can interpret values. Basically what they're talking about is like a character strength. Like you're looking at like the kinds of character strengths you'd want to embody, and you're like, oh, I want to be conscientious or connected or loving or playful, or like a thing like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but the exact same thing where you'd notice like, here's my internal state, but like my intention is to be adventurous. What it look like to be adventurous? And that's like a weird conversation for someone to, or like, what would it look like to be connected? That might be an easier one, to be like, oh, you know what? Like, I actually could connect with my family right now, or I could connect with my work right now, or I could even connect with myself, like, but those are the kinds of conversations, like what am I actually after right here? And this thing that matters to me, like this kind of person that I want to be, or this aspect of the kind of person I want to be, um, is that worth like being able to be with these emotions? Like if I can be this kind of person I want to be, even in the presence of uncomfortable emotions, then like I can be this kind of person like kind of all the time. And again, for the people that struggle with emotional eating the most, that's pretty consistently the more effective approach.
So just for fun, let's
Yeah.
say somebody is, when they do eat when they get sad, or
Yeah.
they're a stress eater.
Yeah.
So say somebody gets sad and they want to go and start eating like a bag of chips.
Yeah.
That's their normal.
Yeah.
How walk me through an example of being aware that they're sad, and then what they can do instead of eating the like how to
Yeah.
rein
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the
How do
that
you
emotional
bridge the gap?
process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So going back to the eating skills conversation from last time, I like to always start with some concrete skills, right? So let's say that one of the guidelines that they're working on, is 4 to 6 hours between meals without snacking, right? So that means that anytime in between meals that they want to have something, that's a cue. I should check in with myself, right? And then they're also working on a guideline. I'm going to pause 10 minutes between the craving and actually having something. So that gives me time to check in, right? So it's 8 o'clock at night, and it's been 2 hours since dinner or whatever, and they're like, I want to eat this bag of chips. So they're like, oh wow, it's only been 2 hours since dinner. I've got this guideline, so this is my cue that I have to check in. And so the first thing I'm going to do to make checking in work is I'm going to put in this 10-minute pause between having the craving and whether or not I decide to eat it or not, right? Because if you just go from like, so the other thing is most time, if this is like your habit, you go from craving to eating instantly. There's no time to be mindful. So just putting in like 10 minutes, like that just gives you like the logistical time to actually check in with yourself.
So I interviewed George Mumford, who's the author of The Mindful Athlete.
Ooh.
Super wise guy, and he always talks about to be mindful. Really, what you want is to create a space between the stimulus and the response.
I
So
like him.
for your for your mandatory pause, what you've done is you've created a 10-minute pause between the stimulus and response.
Yeah,
So even if
that's
they only
exactly
did
it.
that, you created time for mindfulness, even if they weren't mindful, but you actually had them in the mindset of pause.
Yeah, dude, that's perfect.
I'm
um,
learning.
so you've got this 10-minute pause. Um, and inside of that, you're going to start checking in with some stuff. You're going to start checking in with, like, am I actually hungry? So do I feel a hollow feeling in my stomach? Am I craving a complete meal, or is it just the chips? If I wait 10 minutes, does it build or does it fade? And like, if it's been an hour or two since dinner, like, you probably already know what those answers are going to be. But again, there's a value to checking in with yourself and going like, oh, my stomach is telling me that I'm not hungry. Okay, so I know that I'm not hungry. And then what's going on? Like, what's going on for me right now? And then this is where you might say like, I'm sad, or I'm worried about one of my kids is struggling with a thing and I'm freaked out, or deep existential questions about like, where's my life? I mean, like, that's the kind of stuff that people might run into. That's a little freaky, right? And so you might say like, okay, all that stuff's coming up. And then you're like, okay, this is what's up. And this obviously, like, chips aren't going to solve that. That's like a pretty temporary solution. Then we start playing games around acceptance, right? So there's two things we're going to look at. We're going to look at acceptance and a thing called diffusion. Actually, we'll just call it unhooking. So we'll say like acceptance and unhooking. And so acceptance, there's acceptance of like, oh wow, there's this whole range of human emotions, and some of them are uncomfortable. And I am a human, and I'm going to feel uncomfortable emotions sometimes. There's also acceptance of like, wow, like, my kids are going through this thing, or I do have this huge work project, and that is really stressful. And it's normal for me to feel stressed because I care. And like, for me to not care about this, for me to not be stressed out about this, would actually be kind of weird, because these are things that really truly matter to me, right? And so like accepting like I'm in these games that, and I've got, like, there's things I do and there's people I love that matter, and sometimes that's freaky, right? And or even like the existential things, like, what am I doing with my life? Even just accepting like, hey, I'm a human, and that's a thing that humans wonder about sometimes, right? And that is uncomfortable, right? All those things are uncomfortable. So accepting is realizing that like all those things are normal. And where we start off with acceptance is just realizing that those are normal. Humans have those things, right? Doesn't need to be fixed with chips because you're normal. It might look like your friends never have those, might look like everyone on Instagram doesn't have them, but it's pretty normal for humans to. I had an addiction studies professor that always said like, it's not normal for humans to be up all of the time. Um, and so that's the acceptance piece. The unhooking is, there's a whole lot of different ways that we could look at getting a little bit of distance, a little bit of wiggle room. It could be labeling what we're feeling gets us a little bit of distance, like we were talking about before. It could be something as simple as saying, I'm noticing I'm having the thought that blank, right? Which is kind of like a really like basic mindfulness thing. I'm separating me as the noticer from the thought itself. Like, instead of treating that thought like it's true, like it's command, like it's thing that needs to get fixed, like it's like, I'm me, the noticer, and I'm having these thoughts. The thoughts aren't going away, but I notice I'm having them. That actually creates a ton of space, right? And then if we want to get to ninja level, you can start using metaphors. And there are metaphors like let the monsters ride the bus, where you imagine yourself as a bus driver and you're driving your bus, and you pull over and passengers get on and off the bus. And some of the passengers are really cool, and they're like, hey, Tim, you look great today. Like, everything's going great. You're
Thank you.
rocking in your life. And some passengers are like monsters. They're like, hey, Josh, you suck. You're doing everything wrong. Like, you're going to fail this diet again. And, you're doing the wrong thing at work. And right. And that as a bus driver, your job isn't to choose who gets on and off and when. Your job is to drive the bus. And so you're driving this bus, and sometimes you get cool passengers, sometimes you get monsters. And just labeling that as like, sometimes my clients will say like, oh, that's a thought monster, that's a diet monster, that's a cravings monster, whatever. But it's the same kind of thing where you're getting a little bit of distance, and they're like, oh, my job is to drive towards my values. My job is to drive towards these character strengths. And in the moment that driving is, so we've got three things now. We've got acceptance, all these things are normal. We've got unhooking, which is like, oh, these monsters get on and off. This existential crisis is going to get on and off the bus. That's okay. And just by noticing I'm the driver and it's the passenger, I've got some distance. And then we've got like doing something that fits our values. And that doing that thing that fits our values might look like self-care. It might look like, oh, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to do some deep breathing. I'm going to do some crawling. I'm going to do some rolling. I'm going to listen to some music. I'm going to call a friend. I'm going to pet, it could look like something like that. Or it might just be re-engaging with what you were doing. Because like I've got a lot of clients that have busy jobs, and sometimes they have those feelings in the middle of their work, and maybe they can go for a walk in an hour and a half, but they can't right then when they're feeling it. And all they can do is just say like, oh, I can see this monster. My job is to drive. Right now, driving looks like finishing this task that maybe is kind of hard, and especially right now. Or it could be, like I'm taking care of my toddlers and I can't just like go do some deep breathing right at the second. Maybe you could do some breathing, but like you can't go sit in a butt, like you can't go do something. You have to actually be like, oh, I notice I'm having these monsters, but like I'm going to connect right now, or I'm going to, and so that's kind of like, I would almost look at it like, self-care is the thing that we put in because we're humans and we need it. Like we need like maintenance, not to like fix this thing. Like a lot of times re-engaging with life is the option that we have in the moment.
So it sounds like we're really talking about, I got to be careful how I say this, but it sounds like we're talking about spiritual development and or personal growth. And I'm not sure that they're different things. And it also sounds like if that's what we're talking about, once a person learns how to embrace themselves and the power that they have inside of them, that a lot of times maybe that takes care of their nutritional needs, goals, or all lifestyle choices.
Yes, and yes. And the thing that I just want to be really really clear about is that the clients that I tend to get that are dealing with emotional eating have actually already done that in other areas of their lives, and so I just want to be clear that like usually they're rocking their career and have these like amazing, wonderful families and have great friends. And like, in a way, this is like the hole where that's not showing up. And I mean, it could be everywhere, but the clients that I tend to get tend to have already done that in a lot of other areas, which is just kind of funny.
I think that's everybody though. Like I have certain skills where I'm really disciplined in certain areas.
Yeah.
Like I'll compete against anybody in certain areas because I know that I'm so disciplined in those areas. And then there's in other parts of my life where I am the most unorganized and undisciplined person ever.
Totally.
So I think we have certain drives and amount of energy that we can pour into some things, and then for other stuff where we've poured so much into the other, like we don't have enough. We've left gaps or holes because we just haven't spilled all everything we had in over here.
Yeah. um, what that makes me think of is this is another important point. If someone was looking to start practicing this, I want them to know that it is very, very, very hard in the beginning. And a lot of things are hard at the beginning. This is probably the hardest of anything I've ever had anyone work with. So to in the moment, notice like accept and normalize the feelings, and then unhook, and then take an action that fits your values. To actually do that in the moment is like kind of like a black belt level skill for eating. And so if people are trying this out and they struggle with it for the first 2 weeks, I've even had people say that the first 2 weeks they tried it, like it made it worse, which shows up in research sometimes. That's okay because it is a skill, and it gets significantly better. And like you were saying before, once people do get it, it opens up everything. Like once you no longer have to eat to like fix your internal state, then all the other stuff gets way easier, if that was the thing that was holding you back. And for the clients that hire me, most of the time they're hiring me because that was the thing that was holding them back.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, because we all want to get there fast, and we embark on like, I know I need to work on this area of my life. So you dive into it, and maybe you give it everything you got, but then 3 days later you're like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's not here. It hasn't happened yet. I still,
Yeah.
what's the deal? But
Yeah.
you're talking about building, establishing consistent practice.
Yeah.
That pays dividends in the long haul to get you where you want to go, to develop the skill.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. For the people with the biggest emotional eating issues, it looks like the evidence we have now shows that that we can reach more people, right? We can make a difference for something about like twice as many people with acceptance. And so that's a lot, right? And I mean, but then again, you're getting into like, okay, we're still probably leaving 40% of people behind or something like that. But it's the best thing we've got right now. And so coming back around to the like, if I find something better, I'll change my approach again.
Right.
This is just the best thing I found right now.
Awesome. So everyone, if you've been listening, learning how to accept yourself or what you're feeling is probably a better way of taming your, is it habits? Like, I don't want to say, but it is your normal response to food.
Yeah. Like you could say like your automatic response, you know, your typical, your like historical way of avoiding these emotions.
So,
And that's the part that's really hard, is that like emotional eating isn't about food. It's about emotions.
well, okay, so that was probably the best thing right there. That's the line of the whole show. Emotional eating is not about food; it's about emotions.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. And learning how to accept your, it was, and learning how to accept your emotions can actually heal you, so that you're not trying to medicate yourself with food.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Josh Hillis.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.